So we talk about some of the challenges that we have with, integration. That it's essential that, one program doesn't work by itself, but we need to talk to the other programs and make sure that the integration happen between, the three programs. And how we do that today, it's a different approach than what has been done in the past. In the past, for other programs, we had an organization that was responsible for system and engineering and integration. Today, we have a matrix organization, which is the cross-program integration team, or also known as CPED. So in this team, we have reps from each of the programs, and we also have reps from the ESD integration office. There is a ESD integration office, but it's a lot smaller than what it used to be in the past because they're relying to use a lot of the resources from the programs to help integrate. So in this model, we have different teams that they're set up by different areas of expertise on life cycle of a program. So we got anything that supports, the design and development, like interfaces, design verification, different type of mission analysis, all the way to, how the vehicle get integrated, and mission management, how we're going to handle the actual mission. So there's teams laid out that are comprised of members for each of the programs and ESD in some cases. And all of these teams have a product to develop. And this product is something that, in some cases is a plan, in some cases is requirements. But this helps lay out that integration foundation for all the programs of how we're going to be working together. So I would say another attribute that this new integration model has is the fact that we have, quick velocity to make a lot of decisions. We have each of these integrated teams that, they're working on a product. And if we don't reach consensus at that level, that issue gets elevated. It gets elevated, to the team that does the technical, that has the technical authority to make a decision, or it can be elevated to the program manager. So we have the three programs working together to try to find what is the common ground where we would benefit, the enterprise versus, in traditional integration models, we usually have a team where we throw that problem to and let them resolve it. In this model, we're letting each of the programs work together to come up to a common ground. And if we cannot reach consensus, that gets elevated quickly to the people that have authority, and they'll resolve that issue. I could also state about some of the successes that we had with the cross-program integration team. We've been able to define all the ground systems, equipment that's going to be coming to the launch site, or GSC. We work together to try to identify, heritage assessments. So if it's equipment that was used in another program, how do we make sure that that equipment is up to date with our requirements and it's going to be sustainable? We also try to figure out what are those agreed to acceptance requirements. So when the hardware shows up at KSC, we understand what kind of documentation it's coming with, what's the open work, what is the latest drawing that the system was actually built to. We also had some successes in, helping define what are those major integrated testing that's going to happen at the launch site. We went ahead and developed test plans. So we looked at all the major tests that we need to perform at KSC when the vehicle is assembled. We try to figure out how do those tests, are they high-risk items that it's something that we definitely need to test? Because, we can perform all tests we want at KSC, but, also time is money, and, we have schedule pressure, so we need to make sure that things that we're performing at the launch site are definitely necessary testing that need to happen because, they're driven by hazard analysis. We're trying to mitigate some type of risk. So we work in defining some of those, test plans, things from model tests to the wet dress rehearsal. Those are kind of like the big test plans, and also all the different requirements associated with that. Some other things that we've done, as part of cross-program integration is, working on how we're going to be validating some of the systems for EM1. One example I can think of was, performing the underwater recovery test. We performed one for EFT1, and we validated the concept of how we were going to go recover the capsule, the Orion vehicle. Today, we're still doing testing where we're taking credit for some of that validation activities, and we're testing out in San Diego with the Navy, and we're recovering, mock-up crew modules and try to make sure that we're meeting all the requirements that were set up. We've also done a lot of progress in, launch operations. Launch is obviously very important. It's probably the most important piece of the program, if you think about it. So we want to make sure that, we have a concept laid out of what's going to be the launch team, who's going to support the launch team, what are those roles and responsibilities, also the timeline and sequencing of events that are going to have to be part of that launch count, and make sure that we have clear understanding of what those requirements are. Also, I would say that, kind of a segue is that some of the, integration, it's not easy, it's hard. And some of the challenges that we have too is, that I forgot to mention earlier, is, for example, integration with the schedule. We have some challenges with each of the programs, but the fact that we have 3 different programs, we all have different schedules that we manage. So how do we meet those agreements or those deliverables between the 3 programs? That's something that we need to have close coordination and communication. So this cross-program model allows us to communicate directly with the other programs to try to understand what are the deliverables and why a program needs them, and can we really commit to deliver on that date. But at the same time, it's always because of the budget profiles. Each of the programs have their own independent schedules, so try to sync those up. It's a major challenge. As long as, we can manage that risk, that makes it a little bit easier to handle. The CPAD model is, it's a modified version of what a typical level 2 integration office would be. In the past, previous programs, Shuttle ISS, we had, a level 2 integration office that was comprised of civil servants and contractors dedicated exclusively to do that integration function. In the CPAD model, a lot of those resources come from the programs themselves. That's the main difference between the CPAD, and it's also not an organization that stands by itself. It's ESD has a small group of folks that are following the hardware and following what the programs are doing, but really the integration happens within the programs, and it's a matrix environment.